Okay, Arby, it's a delight to meet you again. Uh, before we dive in deep, our readers would love to learn about your personal origin story. Can you share with us a story of your childhood and how you grew up?
Oh wow, going way back. Um, yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn and for a short time in Staten Island as well, and Manhattan. So New Yorker at heart. Grew up in a family that my father, my brother were both pharmacists and worked in the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical advertising. But I always loved the arts, and I loved film, loved everything about the film industry, even though I knew nothing about it, and just taught myself a lot at an early age. And when you grow up in New York, at least back when I was growing up, the idea of working in the film industry, that didn't happen to people that lived in New York, or at least not what my family believed happened, right? So I kind of got pushed into pharmacy school. I always loved writing and everything like that. And, I went to pharmacy school because I had worked as a pharmacy intern at 14, which is illegal in New York, but nobody's going to come after me now. And knew everything about pharmacy, man. And in my senior year of high school, I took my brother's 50-year pharmacology test on the final on the way to a Met game. And ended up getting an 86 on it. And everybody was just like, you're going to coast through pharmacy school. And I probably would have. But as it is with a lot of people who end up, in this business, there's always somebody that pushes you in the direction. There's always one champion. And for me, that was a guy that taught creative writing at my pharmacy school who, basically walked in the first day and said, I've been teaching here for 25 years and only gave 3 A's. And so if you think you're going to coast here, you can get out now. And like 90% of the class left by the next class. I stayed in and he wrote a couple of papers that he told me were the best that he ever read in the 25 years there. And he said to me, and I quote, "Why the fuck are you in pharmacy school?" And I said, "Well, because my father was a pharmacist, my brother was a pharmacist." He goes, "You need to go pursue a life. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be in the film industry. I want to be a writer." And he said, "Go do it, and then go buy your father a pharmacy." He said, "Because you're going to be successful doing it." And that changed everything. And that, pushed me out into, a life of, well, I should back up just a tiny bit and say the entrepreneurial spirit lived in my family. So I ran a bunch of businesses, out of college, a couple of tech businesses. And from there, started a magazine called Razor Magazine, which was a national men's magazine that competed against GQ and Esquire and routinely outsold them for 6 or 7 years. And during that period, I met a lot of people in the industry. And then when Razor ended, I started getting into producing. And what I learned was that even though everybody knew me from the magazine industry, and even though I was a publisher and an editor of a national magazine, nobody took me seriously in the film industry. I had to earn my stripes, and deservedly so. And but that's how I kind of got in. And the first film I produced was Sam Levinson's first film, which is called Another Happy Day, that played at Sundance. And from there, I was off to the races.
Unbelievable. So you probably have so many interesting stories from the different parts of your career, meeting all these fascinating people. And maybe this is hard to boil down, but can you share one or two of the most interesting stories or the most humorous stories that have occurred in your career, either as the creator of Stage 32 or as a filmmaker or the other parts?
Well, one of my favorites was, by virtue of running the magazine, I got to know a lot of the guys in The Sopranos. I became friends with everybody, from Gandolfini to Imperioli to James Gandolfini, and before he passed, sadly. And Sharipper and Steve Sharipper, who played Bobby Bacala, is a good friend, and we shared a publicist at the time, so we were hanging out a lot. And I had just moved from New York to LA, and he was the one that it took me 3 times to move from New York to LA and have it stick, because I needed to really understand how to navigate this business. And that was what Steve told me. Steve said to me, he goes, "You just don't know how, this is in New York. Like, you don't know how to navigate." So Steve was kind enough, we were out here one time in LA at an event of, film premiere. And he was going back to New York, and that's when he said to me, he goes, you're too nice, and you don't know how to navigate. Nice is fine, but you got to be not be taken advantage of. So I said to him, I go, listen, if you're going back to New York tomorrow, I'm getting on your flight, and for the next 3 weeks, I'll buy dinner for every New York actor, director, producer, everybody that I said that will tell me how to navigate this business. And sure enough, that's what we did for a few weeks. And when we got done, he said to me, what'd you learn? And I said, well, I said, in New York, people come to your face, show you the knife, tell you it's nothing, tell you it's nothing personal, and then stick it in. And I go, in LA, they come up behind your back, tell you how wonderful they are, and then stick it in your back. And he said, now you're ready to go navigate LA. And it's very kind of simple and funny and everything like that, but it really was a life lesson. And it really taught me kind of how to navigate this business, and that this is a business of rejection. And that there's people this is the ultimate people pleasing business, where people want to just say nice things because they don't want to be held accountable, or have to get into why they don't like your material. And that's, it really accelerated my path on understanding how to navigate the business. So that's one great bar story I like to tell very often. And also that I share with people that I feel need to learn that lesson. I think a lot of people do. This is not an easy business to navigate. And the more you can understand how it operates, the sort of gears of it, the better off you're going to be.
It's great, amazing. It's been said that sometimes our mistakes can be our greatest teachers. Do you have a story about a humorous mistake that you made when you were first starting, either as an editor or as when you started Stage 32, and if you could share the lesson that you learned from that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ties into the last answer. When I was starting as a writer, I had a very well-known producer request my work, and I was so excited. I mean, this was like, wow, to be read by this particular producer was, at that point when I was just kind of starting out writing, was pretty big. And I waited and I waited, and didn't get a response, didn't hear back from him. And I started asking people, how do I handle it? Like, email him every 3 weeks and all that. And then I would, and he would say like, oh, I haven't gotten to it yet and everything. And then finally one day he just wrote me and said, yeah, I did read it, but it's not for me.
Mm.
And I was like, well, what the hell does that mean? I'm a New Yorker. I want to know it all, right? Give me the response, right? So give me the details. So I went to some friends, and they were like, well, ask him like why, and ask him, to give you some reasons. So I went back and I just said, I appreciate that, but could you give me something that might help me along the way? And he's like, I'm just telling you, it's not for me. And I said, well, I understand that. And, and I went back and forth like 3 times, right? With him just very shortly and succinctly saying it's not for me. And then finally, after like the third time, he said, call me, and gave me his number. And I was like, okay. So I called him, and he goes, look, you seem like a really nice guy. He goes, where you from? And I said, New York, and the whole thing. And he goes, I'm going to teach you a lesson. He goes, it's not for me in this business means that I probably didn't really like it that much, and I don't want to tell you why. Because I don't want to get into a conversation with you, and I don't want to, And it was a lesson again. It was this shorthand of sort of like, okay. Now, on the flip side, I have to be fair. I went back to him and I said, how long have you been in this business? And he said, well, 30 something years. And I said, okay. I said, when you were first starting out, I said, would you tell somebody it wasn't for them, or would you give them advice, and would you help them out? He said, I would give him advice and help him out. I go, so what's changed? And he was like, well, he goes, now you've changed my perspective on that too. Maybe I need to be a little more patient and a little bit more understanding, and remember that everybody has the best intentions at heart. So I think we both learned the lesson. But it was very, very funny because, I'm taking this guy to task who was an Academy Award nominated producer and, had seen it all. And here's this upstart, like, kind of coming after him. But it was a really good lesson on both ends, I think.
Unbelievable. That's an amazing story. And it kind of like that feels like that's like the motif behind Stage 32, like whereas everyone's helping each other. So
Well, we certainly, that's one thing is that, with our executives in Stage 32, we express to them that, look, you're going to get people that you don't know when you crack open that script, or when you sit in front of that person, when that person sits in front of you and you're doing like a Zoom consultation or whatever, whether this is their first script or whether this is, they've had some level of success. Maybe you could tell a little bit by the writing and maybe by the questions, but at first you may not know. And what we tell to say to everybody is like, look, you need to come in with empathy, and you need to come in, open minded. And, we very much stress to all our executives that don't just say it's not for me. Give them actionable advice, things that they could take away. Because, we don't, the whole goal of stage 32 is to create open roads, where people normally see dead ends, or debris in the road. We want to clear that debris and have them be able to see, the road up ahead. So it's something that definitely those conversations definitely influenced the mission of stage 32 before I launched it, because I had gone through this already.
Unbelievable. So can you share, how did it start? Like, how did Stage 32 begin? When did the idea come to you? How did you put it together? How long did
Well, the idea came to me in 2009, and having run tech companies before, I knew it would be a monster, and I didn't want to do it, to be perfectly honest with you. I had the idea, but I didn't really want to go through with it because I also didn't want it to take away from my creative career, right? But then when we were filming Another Happy Day, the Sam Levinson movie, we were filming in Michigan, and at that time the Michigan tax incentives were huge, so everybody was shooting out there. And we were shooting in the middle of nowhere, and we had this amazing cast, Demi Moore, Ellen Barkin, Thomas Hayden Church, Ezra Miller, Kate Bosworth, George Kennedy in his last role. I mean, we had just an amazing, amazing cast. And, when you shoot on an independent film like that, it's like summer camp. Everybody is all just hanging out together. It's 2 a.m. You're drinking beers with Demi Moore by the pool. Things like that. And then, it's that type of thing like summer camp, like we're all going to stay in touch, we're all going to do this forever together and all this stuff. And then everybody goes their separate ways. And what happened was the tax incentives in Michigan dried up. And a lot of the people that we worked with on the film started hitting me up saying, can you help me in LA? And I was like, I certainly could put in a word, but this is a really tribal business. And in many ways, it's more tribal than any other business out there. Right. So I was like, the whole idea behind stage 32 is how do we connect people? Right. How do we educate them? And how do we give them access? So it was after that experience that I was like, I have to launch this thing. I have to give it, I have to be able to help people around the world and give them a fair opportunity. And that's where it all came from.
unbelievable, unbelievable. So you probably have a very unique perspective on what's happening in Hollywood now with the strike and everything. Let's say you were the king of Hollywood. What changes are you happy about seeing over the past 5 years? And what changes would you, as the king, what changes would you implement moving forward to the industry? Let's say you have the ability just to snap your fingers and make changes.
Well, taking the second one first, everybody deserves to be paid and paid fairly. And, I think the residual fight is a good one. I think the AI fight is a good one. Um, as far as the business goes, the democratization, the leveling of the playing field, the globalization, I would lean into that all day long. It's where we're going. It's what makes the world go round. Story's universal. And we're seeing that because we're seeing so many foreign productions that are, universal themes that are thriving on the streamers. So that's definitely something I would lean into.
Hmm, amazing point. So yes, let's talk about the unique. How would you describe the unique value proposition that Stage 32 offers to actors and creatives?
Well, I think, it's a good question. The ability to connect with anybody in the world, the ability to have access to decision makers, the ability to learn from world-class educators that are doing it now, that's something you can't find anyplace else. So, it's a free platform. You can do whatever you want with it. I like to say you get out what you put in. So if you do the work, you're going to make the connections that matter. But then there's a premium side, and that's all about investing in yourself. So, that's something we're extremely proud of, is the ability to create an open door so that people can get past the gatekeepers, learn from the people that are doing it in the trenches right now. That to me, I don't know how you create more value than that.
Okay, it's an amazing answer. Okay, so this is our signature question. So your skill set is bringing people together in an amazing network and helping them to network. So can you share 5 tips for an aspiring young creative to successfully network, either digitally or in person? What are the things you need to do to successfully network where it's not just getting their card and or doing cold emails, cold mail? How can you successfully network?
I think it's a great question. That is a really, really good question. What I would say, this isn't a tip, but I would just say it is a tip, but you have to create, a lot of people don't, their online persona is different than their in-person persona.
Hmm,
And that's a gigantic mistake.
hmm,
Okay. The world runs online right now. We pitch online, we have meetings online, everything has changed, right? So, you have to make sure your online, you don't handle anything online in any way, in any manner that you wouldn't in person, right? So that's the very first thing. It's not a tip, but it really is, advice on how to handle things. As far as, we get a lot of introverts in this industry and a lot of introverts on stage 32. And we get asked all the time, we hear from people that, feel like they have no place on social media or they have imposter syndrome. To me, the easiest way in is to ask questions. That would be tip one.
hmm,
If you're on stage 32 and you have a captive audience of people that are offering advice, you can't be afraid to go in there and ask questions. The second thing is to give compliments, right? You don't realize how many people put themselves out there with great material, take the time to write great material, record great material, and people consume that and they gain something from it, but they don't give anything back. And you'd be surprised just how, impactful it could be just to give a thank you, just to say, like, this really had an effect on me and here's why. So
hmm,
that's a second way you can contribute and be involved.
hmm,
A third way is to share content, right? All of us read, all of us should be, especially if you're in this business, you should be reading the trades every day. We all consume content, share things that matter to you, right? I think a fourth way is really, it's to point out other people in the community that have had an impact on you. Because in a closed, honest, in a niche community like Stage 32, where everybody is like-minded and trying to do the same thing, it's important that we connect people to one another. So to me, being able to say this person had an impact on me, you should follow this person, you should really pay attention to what they're saying. That's a gift to both the person that you're complimenting and the people that you're exposing that person or that person to, right? And then I would say the fifth way is we all have life experiences. We all have business experiences. A lot of those are learning experiences, things that did not go well. Share the good and the bad, right? I make it human. In this business, or in this world, I guess you could say, people try to create this persona on social media that everything is fantastic, like these the beautiful vacations on Instagram and all these unbelievable things, curated and airbrushed and all this crap. But if you really look at the people that are successful on social media, it's the people that are real, it's the people that are the most honest, it's the people that share the heartache along with the successes, right? And even in success, what I love that people do, or people that are really understanding what they do, is they'll talk about the success, but they'll talk about what they learned along the way to get there.
hmm,
And,
hmm,
I think that's really important too. So those are 5 tips. My whole big thing is to be honest and transparent and real. And, know what you want your online brand to be.
hmm,
Know what you want your online brand to be, and understand that your brand in this day and age, especially in this industry, matters. Like, if you're out there raging against the machine all day long on social media, I mean, I've seen people lose gigs. I've been in casting rooms where it's come down to 2 actors, and I'm not joking. The casting directors have looked at both actors' Twitter accounts
uh,
and looked at one and said, man, this actress seems real difficult, and everything's a battle. We don't need that on our set. Like it matters. Your brand matters. And like I said, a lot of what's going on in the world is online and people research you online. So make sure your brand's on point too. Make sure that that doesn't mean you can't be opinionated and outspoken, but you know, you got to choose your battles, right? And if you're gonna always be combative out there, it's gonna come back probably to bite you in the ass. So in one way or another, you may not even know, but it will.
it's great. It's amazing advice. This is our final question. This is our aspirational question. So R&B, because of the great work that you've built and the platform that great work that you're doing and the platform that you've built, You're a person of enormous influence, and a lot of people take your words very seriously. If you could spread an idea or inspire a movement that would bring the most amount of good to the most amount of people, what would that be? Because you never know what your idea can inspire.
Wow, that's another great question. Well, I would hope that Stage 32 plays into that, because Stage 32 to me is a movement. It's a mission and a movement. That mission hasn't changed since day one. And, the entire staff lives by it. So, the way that we communicate with people, the way that we collectively, the way that we all and individually, the way that we um, approach every problem or every pushback that we get on the platform, like I said earlier, we do everything with empathy. So I think if I was going to spread one idea to everybody, especially in this, well, I'm going to say in this business and in all everywhere, it's that it can happen for you. It absolutely can happen for you, right? But it takes commitment, it takes consistent education and self-learning, and it takes a shit ton of discipline. And but the people, if you pay attention to people that are successful, you'll see that they have a commonality in those traits and in others that are, progressive, repeatable, things they do every morning, things they do every evening. Everybody, that's not to say that you read every freaking self-help book and go by every single thing, but the idea behind it is you find what works for you and then you make it repeatable, you commit to it, you stay the course, you understand that every day is an incremental climb. You know what I mean? Did you go to bed? I hate saying 1% better because that's that cliche kind of thing, but can you lie your head down on your pillow and say the thing did I accomplish the things I set out to do today, or at least tried my best to, and get up again and do it the next day and the next day? Anything's possible. And you probably will have success. And the thing that I would stress the most is if you do those things, you will have a massive competitive advantage over 99% of the people trying to do the same thing as you, because they don't do it.
Hmm.
So that would be the idea that I would spread. Maybe that's a few ideas, but
That's great. That's amazing. It'll look good when we bullet point it. Beautiful, amazing. How can our readers continue to follow your work online? How could they sign up to Stage 32? How could they continue to support what you're doing?
sure. I mean, well, to hook up with me on Stage 32, just go to stage32.com and you'll get a welcome message from me. That welcome message is automated, but everything else is me. So if you see me anywhere, that is me responding. And I think I have over something like 1.7 million posts on Stage 32 for the last 12 years. So that's me. Everything you see is me. On other social, I am on Twitter and Instagram at RB Walks Into a Bar. Pretty easy to remember and pretty fitting. And that, again, talk about branding. That's kind of a little brand thing. And then on LinkedIn, just under my name on LinkedIn.
Amazing. So one funny question: what's the origin of the term Stage 32?
Oh, great question. All right, so I'm a big Orson Welles fan. Okay, not just for his films, but the man, right? A lot of people don't realize, over time, Orson Welles has history hasn't been kind to him. He's kind of seen these days as, somebody that was a tyrant, that couldn't play the game, that fought back against the system, all this stuff. Some of those things are true, fighting back against the system, but in a meaningful way, very similar to what's happening right now with the strikes. The creatives are looking for what's theirs and what they feel deservedly should be theirs, including having, people in writers' rooms and all that. Orson Welles just wanted a certain amount of creative control that they gave him with Citizen Kane, and then they took away from him, which is insane. But the big thing was that a lot of people feel like he was sort of a dictator and a tyrant, and really the opposite is true. He was the ultimate collaborator. And in fact, if you read a bunch of these memoirs that are out there, especially from people that work with him, you'll see that he wanted everyone to be involved. It was the exact opposite, right? And if you really look at Citizen Kane, what you see is most of those actors in Citizen Kane came from his radio shows. They had never acted on screen, but he believed enough in them to put them on screen. And of course, they were all fantastic. So that was something that was great as well, right? So in the true spirit of collaboration, which is what Stage 32 is all about, and the true spirit of, creating their own tribes, if Citizen Kane was filmed on RKO 17, the old RKO lot, okay, which is now Paramount Stage 32. So if you go to Paramount Stage 32 and you look on in the front by the front door of the stage, there is a plaque that says that Citizen Kane was filmed on this lot,
Hmm.
or on the soundstage, I should say. And that's where Stage 32 came from, in the spirit of true collaboration, and in my opinion, one of the greatest minds and true collaborators in the history of this medium.
Here's like an interesting insight. So, is a Jewish connection. The number 32 in Judaism represents the heart, empathy. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
the reason is because 32 is the way to write it is Lamed Beis. The number is actually would spell out the word heart. So it was
That's pretty cool. I had no idea. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so 32, so 30 stage 32 represents like the empathy stage. So
That fits right
I
in,
knew
man.
there was some kind of connection. Yeah, but it fits.
That fits right in. That's great.
Great. Beautiful. RB, it's so nice to meet you, my friend. I wish you only continued success and blessings. And I'm excited to share your story and this interview with the world.
Same to you, my friend. I'm grateful for the time and the interest, and grateful for you, and good to see you again, and all continued success to you as well.
Appreciate you so much. So I'll send you the draft within 48 hours. You guys will get the draft.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. See you both. RB, see you, Sean. We'll be in touch.
Thanks.
In touch
We
soon.
appreciate you as always.
Good to see you. Thanks.
All the best. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.